Similarly, there's the issue of being venomous. You know, toxicity can be both venom and poison, but usually poison means you're going to ingest it. You're going to stick it in your mouth. But venomous means all you have to do is touch it, or chemically have some of the chemicals from it come in contact with your eyes, your skin, what have you. Everybody knows this. Here's the feature fish from Florida nowadays. Yeah. Some of the leaf fishes, they're actually male cheek fishes, like line fishes. This is one of the most venomous darn fishes, the little saltwater catfish, Plotosis lineatus. If you work in the trade, you ever gotten jabbed by one of these things? I mean, it's incredibly painful. And the fishes that we call tangs and rabbit fishes, or spinefoots, is a common name outside the U.S. in most places. They're delicious to eat, but the stout spine that occurs in the first part of the dorsal fin and the first few rays of the anal fins have venom glands associated with them. They're really hurt like heck. So once again, as long as you're aware that they're venomous and keep your eye on them when your hand's in the tank, what have you, or the fish, what have you, is in a net, I think you'd be fine. Next. Favorite family, the Labradine. Wrasses. This is an example of buying something at the right size and realizing how big it may get. The largest wrasse in the world is called a Napoleon, like the guy with the hat. What have you, smoked too much pot in high school and had his hand in his jacket all the time. It's really good looking once again when it's small, but unfortunately it gets to be more than 2 meters long, like 7 feet. So, and it's sold in the trade sometimes, not often. It's more of a public aquarium fish. The genus Bodianus, the hog fishes that are wrasses, some of them are actually pretty good looking. The Cuban hog, very nice when small, but it does get to be 18 inches long. It does. Fortunately, there are some other species, Anthioides, tops out about 6 inches, and the Bimaculatus, the little two-spot, is really about 4 inch long. So, next. And there are even some smaller species and that, once again, have a mixed history of whether they're going to live or not. The Cirrolabris are some favorites, the velvet wrasses. Some of the Paracaelinus, the line wrasses. Unfortunately, there are some wrasses, this is Pseudocaelinus, it rarely lives in captivity. And then today I saw a bunch of leopard wrasses. When I was a kid, you know, I was breaking the loaves with Jesus, feeding tilapia. These things never lived. But some people keep them in reef tanks all the time now. Next. Okay, one of my favorite stories, Little Red Riding Hood. Is there a Little Red Riding Hood? Little Red Riding Hood? Did she have the porridge that was different temperatures? That's Goldilocks. I wonder I don't have any children. I am looking for cards on Father's Day from far away. The issue of what size to buy the things out. Still 99% of all marine livestock is wild collected. It actually is. And so it's seasonal. Even though it's the tropics, the temperature doesn't change that much, the tides don't change that much as it's near the equator. The animals reproduce at different seasonalities. And so in some seasons you can get smaller specimens, other times they're bigger and bigger and bigger. By and large, you don't want ones that are, like the porridge, too cold or too hot, or too small or too large. The two small ones and the two large ones, they really don't like being collected. They take a beating, and also they ship poorly. And then once they get into a system, they adapt poorly to foods that people can offer them. So once again, there is like an optimal range by species, and even sometimes by region, of what organisms are best to buy at that range. And in this case, this is Nasoliteratus, the nasotang. These, when they're at least, in fisheries, we just measure body length to the, like here, the caudal peduncle, not the end of the tail, because the tail can get cut off or bitten off, what have you. But 3 to 5 inches is really about ideal. Comments? They're not me. Next. And then here's my big plea, as usual. Unfortunately, I've been in the trade for a very long time. I worked as a kid in the Philippines for Earl Kennedy, just doing labor type jobs. But back when the use of cyanide, economic poisons, actually first took hold. And so my advice, especially with something that's expensive, like a large or rare angelfish, maybe a Leopropoma bass from deep water, what have you, they can do a little investigating. Once again, even just the internet will tell you maybe whether those organisms are collected through nefarious methods that you don't want to endorse. And so, like I always tell people, you don't want those methods to persist, stop it. I know more friends of mine that are like, it's terrible, the drug troubles and the worries that it's causing people. I go, stop buying the drugs, stop. You're paying for the misery of those people. So this is a friend of mine who got heave-ho out of Indonesia about years and years ago. But he had these shirts made up and distributed them. And still, unfortunately, a important process, the collection of, especially fishes, with economic poisons, and in particular in parts of, yes, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. Unfortunately. Next. Yeah! And how about these? There are more and more organisms that are produced in captivity. I was kind of bummed today. I asked a couple of the stores, the managers and owners, I go, are there people here that are at least selling frags? They said no. It's been a long time since traveling around that I've heard that. It's not hard, but as you might guess, other than eating and avoiding predators, most of aquatic life is out there trying to make more copies of itself. Given half the chance, you have those multifasciatus angels, what have you, consider paying for your habit. I mean, honestly, without looking around, how many people have a slush fund? Sorry if your significant other is near you. Oh, I only spend $100 a year on supplements. Right, you liars. Oh, I don't pee in my wetsuit. Come on. Are you joking? Lord. All right. Anyway, the long story, I encourage people to buy captive produced organisms if they can. Somebody was mentioning it earlier, Brooklynellosis. Brooklynella hostilis is a protozoan mainly associated with clownfishes. Well, guess what? It's not associated with captive produced clownfishes. Don't buy the wild caught ones. Unfortunately, there are places in the world, for instance, Singapore, where wild collected clownfish cost about 25 cents, and the captive produced ones about $6. And it's hard to convince people, but I will assure you, the captive produced ones live long. So, anyway, and other stuff's raised too. You probably know most all the giant clams nowadays are produced. Algae, macroalgae are produced. Of course, gobies, somewhat gobies, and clownfishes galore. Next. So now you've already set upon what it is you're going to buy species-wise, and now you're looking for which specimens to pick out as your very own. Some things to avoid, of course, animals that have troubles. In particular, where to look for the troubles. I already mentioned the mouths, but the fishes get damaged pretty easily. It generally gets damaged too much, the animal won't eat. And as I say, you're not Jesus, we'll make you coffee's Jesus. It's got them on here. You never know. Go ahead. But you're not bringing them back. Once they go, they're gone. So you want to look at it very carefully. This is a very advanced case of neuramax destruction or a head and lateral line disease. But even just the beginning of open pores is indicative of something wrong. The animal's been exposed to a poor environment, a lack of nutrition, something. Exophthalmia, when it's unilateral, one-sided, pop-eye, is almost always due to a mechanical trauma, an animal bumping into something, getting whacked by a net. So these are extreme examples, but very important to be able to discern what are better specimens. And towards that end, once again, books, the best friend, a reef guru, one of the people from the club who can go with you and knows what they're doing, to help you pick through the specimens. Most reef organisms don't ever let on that there's trouble. If they do, guess what? Here's that shark again. It comes along and says, oh, I can chase after these guys all day, or this one looks like pretty easy pickings. I'll just go after them. Another easy measure, this is a fisheries term, is index of fitness. If you divide the girth into the length of any given specimen of a species, you get a number. And you can see this one here, this is the bobfish. He's looking pretty good. He's not skinny, he's well-rounded. In particular, if you look on head-on, you'll see that the part of the body above the head and the flank is not concave, it's not pinched in. Whereas look at this one here. It's like the JT fish. He's answering his cell phone. No, the fish is pinched in. You don't want that specimen. Next. And this, I wish Jake Adams were here. I've tried to shoot video as well over all the years, above and below water, and I need to somehow clip in a piece of video that works to try to define and display what I'm trying to say here, and that is that sometimes the same animal in a snapshot might look one to the next as good as any other, but if you saw it behaviorally and kinetic behavior and moving, you'd go, oh, I don't want that one. And toward that end, I'm telling you, this fish and this fish, and even the Ketodonticus behind it, are the types of specimens you want. They have the quality of being bright. They're alert, they're aware of what's going on. The better fish stores, where are all their animals when you're looking at them? They're right up against the front of the glass going, isn't that the person with the can of food? You know, whoa, come on, let's have something. Whereas this one here, it's having private parties in the corner. It's ataxic one way or the other. Now here's the bad news. These are in cubicles, is what we call them in the trade. They're usually 1 or 2 gallons, and they're where you keep more valuable animals so they're more easily catchable and so they don't get picked on by each other or by other livestock. Unfortunately, it's just human nature that when the person goes, and you want 1 Carrarian angel, or 1 emperor angel, they catch which one? The same as that shark. They catch the one that's easiest to catch. It's just human nature, right? But you wouldn't want this specimen. The last one, let's go back. Come on. This Navarcus angel and majestic angel. This has been a fish that's been cyanide. Among other things, you go, wow, what are you, a histologist? You can just look at the thing and tell. Actually, I can tell from the color and its behavior and that its fins are absolutely perfect. It's been poisoned to collect it. And when it was poisoned, it just kind of floated out. People said, oh, perfect specimen. But it will not eat, and eventually when it may try to eat, it'll be dead overnight. Next. Next. And then jumping, I throw this in. Most all the aquatic life we have, I did want to notice Bobby had the piece of louver, egg crate, egg crate. You know, on top of his 29-gallon quarantine tank. Most everything that we keep can launch itself out of the tanks. So the only things I've found that really don't do that very much are seahorses and their relatives. More dried fish, I can tell you. Next. And now, once again, you've progressed, you've figured out what it is you want to keep, which specimens you're going to keep. Now it's a question of, in what order do you put them in the system? You guys already know this, but I have to say it anyway because it's an element of livestock selection. But the reality is, it's important who goes in what order. Very important. And, as an example, you have a little undulated trigger. Oh, so cute, so cute. And this little cleaner goby, one way or the other. Who goes in first? Yeah, hopefully this guy. And then, even then, probably will get eaten by this guy. Next. Oh. Here's my favorite example. Anybody who's actually been in the trade in particular has seen that 3-spot damsel. These things they're saltwater piranha. That's right. If they got to a foot long, I wouldn't even go in the ocean. The damn things, I still have like scars from being bitten by them. When I met Chris Turk many years ago, we started Ocean Nutrition, like 30-some years ago at SeaWorld in San Diego. He was pouring a gallon of bleach in a 4x4 by 4 foot tank to get rid of one of these, Daxylus trimaculatus. These darn things, they really bite. So what am I trying to say? Even though it's not all that big, you might think, oh wow, I better put this guy in first because this emperor angel is much larger. Oh no, that's not the case at all. The emperor's going to get the heck beat out of him by this three spot. Three spots, the whole genus is just evil. That's it. Next one. And how long, not to be too confusing, but I do disagree with Bobby. It's just one of those things where you go, there's this blanket statement, all Muslims are evil. All Muslim three-spot damsels are evil. But actually there are some groups of organisms that I don't encourage people to quarantine or even dip or bathe for fear that they're too small, they've been starved for too long from when they were collected and held and shipped and what have you. Very often when the animals are captured or they're going to be shipped, people don't feed them for days, sometimes weeks. A lot of animals are small. What are they doing besides reproducing, avoiding predators, what have you, out in the wild? They're eating, right? And so they're so small they can't go without eating for days and days and days. So delaying them any further is a poor idea. By and large, these small animals, they should be left at the fish stores even more than a few weeks. Many of the stores have a titer of copper in their water. Many of them do. Most of the wholesalers do. Even some public aquariums do, to prevent external parasite problems and as an algal cell. Anyway, so that's these organisms. And there's all sorts of examples, but mainly gobies, blennies, the smaller fishes. They shouldn't be delayed. Next. And I included a couple of cells of some organisms, so people don't get all bummed out and turn their tanks into guinea pig raceways. I thought, I should say that, after all this negativity and things that you're cautioned about getting or putting together, there are some groups of organisms in our interest that actually are quite hardy. The Amylogobius gobies is like the Exenius blennies. The Bengal cardinals, when they're at least a little bit larger, whether they're captive produced or wild collected. Next. They're often called blennies, but Labrosomid. This group of fishes, for years, I see them out in the wild. I go, there's a zillion of them. They're good looking. They look like to be easy to catch. Most all the fishes we use are caught in what are called Mr. barrier nets. They're like a fence of a net that's got some floats at the top and like a lead line on the bottom. The animals are driven off part of the reef. Then the people put the net down, and then they drive. The fishes come right back. There's not a spare room in the ocean, so they actually have a territory, and they come pretty much back, and you can actually scare them into the mist net and catch them off. Including this group, the Fusiliers. They're close related to snappers. Used to be in the same family. And as I say, the scooter blennies, you don't realize there's actually about 128 species of scooter blennies. Next. And the small hawk fishes, the microdesmids called dark fishes, what have you. And for the lionfishes, eat them all. There are no brahmas or bromatids. Thank goodness the lionfish don't generally go real deep. So mainly just eating all the brahmalaredos. Next. Jawfishes, once again, this is the one most popular species, but there are a few dozen others. The comets or sea bettas. And somebody was asking, what sort of fish can you catch off of West Guinea here in Africa? The old Centropygia rotinatus, the flameback angel from Africa. The dwarf angels, they're great. Next. And all manner of damsels, in particular the genus Chrysiptera, the dottybacks, in particular the species that are bred in captivity, they're very, very good choices. Some of the ones that are from the wild, they're mean as the dickens. That splendens, that thing also is evil. Should just be put in the 3 spots. And the genus Sipho, I think they should be called Psycho. They're really neat, one way or the other. Once again, captive produced clownfishes and some of the anthines, the fancy basses. Oh, that's it. Next. And an assortment of good invertebrate choices. I really like a bunch of the stoloniferans. It always amazes me in the wild, having been a collector as a kid, and actually, how many people are going to go to the MACNA in Dallas? The end of September? Oh, great. I think I'm going to get a party bus together and everybody should go. You know, bathroom in the back, coolers, you know, what have you. Last year, I retired in '94, but I went out to Fiji for a few months and helped put up a collecting station in Fiji. And now, so that's what my talk is going to be at the next MACNA. So you can see that bit of it. But when you're out in the wild, there's something I call the founder or flounder effect. You know, people collect stuff because it's on the list. You go, well, let's go collect 100 of these, 10 of these, and as many of these as we can collect, because we'll get paid for it. You see something else that's good looking, seems hardy, easy to catch, what have you, you're like, wow, let's collect that. No, it's not on the list. You're not going to get paid for it. So, so you go, how does anything new get introduced to the hobby? That's a very good question. You know, I call it the founder or flounder effect, one way or the other. But there's many of these groups of organisms, the sea mats, sometimes called, the stoloniferans, the clavulariids, that are just absolutely gorgeous. But people don't collect them because it doesn't look like the one that we're going to get paid for. Next. Clixa, or the old claviella, you touch it and it turns lighter colored. Some of the sarcophytans are good choices. And some of the other alciniids, the soft corals that don't get too darn big or put up too much in the way of turbinoids. Next. Some of the zoanthids, not all of them, most of these are toxic as the dickens. So, you know, if you're fooling with them, gloves, eye protection, long sleeves, don't let the dog pick it up in his mouth, one way or the other. But zoanthids, and I was very pleased to see there's a bunch of recordios at the shops around here. Next. Of course, the captive produced tridacnids and some of the shrimps, the lismata, not so much the boxing shrimps. These tend to be very predaceous. Very predaceous. Next. And lastly, your favorite, some of the sand sifting stars, some of the sea urchins, and some of the sea cucumbers that don't get too big and don't have varying tubules. They don't throw up and poison your whole system, which is no fun whatsoever. Okay. All right, there we go. I told you I was a handsome dog when I was younger. Here I am in one of our fish stores back in the early 80s, I think. I was actually in the biz. I want to mention to you, if you're buying something that's expensive, in particular if it's very new to the store, they just got it in, because there's nobody here who can lie otherwise, when do you think most of the livestock is lost in the industry? Is it a week after it gets to the store? Is it the 2 days after it was collected in the wild? No! It's that night. Most of the stuff dies the first day at nighttime. And so I encourage people, once again, if something's expensive and or you highly value it otherwise, and it just came in, to ask your dealer to hold it for you on deposit. Do the stores do that here?
If you've got a relationship with the owners.
Good idea.
You can ask that, yeah.
I think it's a very good idea. Next. And then mail order. Don't look at anybody. How many people have bought stuff through like the internet? Ah, terrible. I'll admit, I actually, like I say, my form of gambling, I've given up on women. No, I haven't. Is trying to take pictures above and below water. And so yes, I bought camera gear. Gosh, even though the margins are tiny, even the gray market stuff. Ah, scumbag. Over the internet. If you're going to buy livestock over the internet, here's my plea to you. Play by the rules. Be there when the organisms are being delivered. Very often they've been delayed. Who knows what, they got shipped to Alaska, you know, what have you. And now they're being shipped down to you. Very important to meet them right then and there. If you have issues, DOAs, questionable, you know, issues about whether the life may be alive the next day, contact the shipper. Take a few photos. They can be digital photos, one way or the other. to where you have some sort of legitimate claim on a loss. Waiting a week later and contacting them, nah, that doesn't work. All right, next. And then yes, I didn't know Bayou was going to talk so much about this thing. I'm going to tell you a story. Well, when I was in graduate school, there's an old roommate, Mike Kent, who worked on this organism. This one's been stained, Eosin red stain, but it's the turbolarian, the flatworm that's called paravortex. It's the causative organism for black spot disease, in particular on tangs, and in particular because it shows up so well against the background on yellow tangs. So years ago, I hate to say how many years ago, in the mid-70s, when Mike was working on this thing, we found out that by doing just a simple freshwater bath, all these things popped off. You know, they couldn't stand the difference in osmotic balance, and so they just left the host immediately. You could take them out of the freshwater and leave them behind. They were gone. But after that, we couldn't find any specimens. As everybody learned, because we wrote an article for Seascope magazine, Aquarium Systems, and they were gone. However, like I say, as an example of the value of quarantine and dips, even if you go, well, I'm not listening to Bobby, but I'll listen to Bob. You know, why not? He's muy guapo. I didn't say gordo. The long and short of it is, a dip, like not this dip, not in your mouth, but dipping the fish in a pH-adjusted freshwater bath would save you 90-some% of the time from real troubles. Next. And then, yeah, the same old statement, you know what you know, what have you. Knowledge is power, be powerful. Study up, come to these sorts of get-togethers. But if you have questions, problems, suggestions, be vocal. You can call JT anytime, unless his wife's house isn't clean. The long and short of it is, help is available. There's knuckleheads like myself. You know, what are you doing? You're out here doing these talks still? I can't help myself. Otherwise on the internet, you know, just ask for help. Believe me, many people have the same sorts of troubles before and are very eager to help you. As I say, the number one issue I have with the hobby is the dropout rate. We lose more than 100% of the people in the trade every year. People quit. They quit for lots of reasons. For one, though, for want of readily available, useful information. So, you know, I always thought the internet would be some sort of great stopgap measure. I didn't know all the other knuckleheads in the world would write a bunch of nonsense on it, too. Anyway, and that's the end of my talk, I hope. Let's get on to the wrap-up. That's big applause. The ceiling with bombs. Thank you.
Bob, thank you very much for coming out. Really appreciate it.
All right,
That was
thank you.
excellent talk. Thank you very much.